from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, could fresh talks keep a trade war from erupting? Plus,
I'm Michelle Rook. What does the acreage mix look like for the 2018 growing season? We'll find out from farmers coming up.
In agribusiness, end user opportunity.
In reality, if we go back since about 2005, we've seen plenty of years where volatility kicks in, the market's a lot higher, just not recently.
The dairy report and an omnibus surprise. And sharp shooting and staying safe at this 4-H event in Louisiana.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. Wall Street bouncing back Monday when it appeared the U.S. and China were willing to negotiate differences in the recent trade spat. On Monday, China is saying it's willing to talk to the U.S. on the trade tariff issue. On Sunday, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says he's cautiously hopeful the two countries will reach an agreement before the U.S. proceeds with the tariffs. President Trump intending to implement up to $60 billion in tariffs on Chinese imports, accusing the nation of stealing U.S. intellectual property. China has not indicated retaliatory tariffs stemming from that specific action. However, the country did announce $3 billion in tariffs against U.S. products, many of them ag products, including pork, in response to U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum.
If we lost all of that business, again, I think this is one of the things that we'd have to look at if we had that size of tariff in terms of pork, then we would lose about 2% of our production that we would not have a ready market for. What does that mean? We think that means probably around $2.50 per hundredweight, or maybe something around $7 per hog lower price.
Farmers remain concerned about the potential for market disruption.
We export $1.1 billion worth of pork to China in 2017, which is our second largest customer. We exported over $15 billion of pork in 2017, which represents 1 out of every 4 pigs has been exported. So if we become involved in a trade war, a lot of our production is at risk.
A positive development on the Korea-U.S. free trade agreement front is possible this week. The president saying an amended deal between the U.S. and South Korea is very close to being finished. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross also saying the U.S. is close to a, quote, pretty comprehensive resolution with South Korea. The two countries have been in talks to modify the 2012 bilateral trade pact since January. It's a big week in the grain sector as USDA will release its prospective plantings report on Thursday. There's no shortage of pre-report estimates from private analytical firms, including our corporate cousins over at Pro Farmer Newsletter. Pro Farmer's results show we should expect record soybean plantings again this year. Pro Farmer's soy estimate coming in at 90.9 million acres, up roughly 800,000 acres from last year. They expect most of the increased plantings in the Midwest. Pro Farmer's corn estimate coming in at 88.4 million acres this year, down about 1.8 million acres. Historically, the prospective plantings report is a real market mover. The speculation about what farmers will plant for the season has been talked about for weeks. Last month at USDA's Outlook Forum, their economists announced 90 million acres of both corn and soybeans. Michelle Rook talked with farmers from around the country to get their take.
2018 could be another crop year with more soybeans, less corn, and near record low acreage on wheat, all driven by economics. In fact, early projections are for record U.S. soybean acres and beans exceeding corn for the first time, as the corn-soybean ratio favors soybeans.
There is a trend toward more soybeans. There's a little more profitability in soybeans, or an opportunity to create a profit, than there is in corn.
Beans probably holds a $20 to $30 an acre advantage right now with normal yields.
Input costs for soybeans are also lower than corn and other crops.
Soybeans work better in a reduced funding scenario because the costs are not as high as a corn situation.
Early seed sales indicate more beans and maybe even some beans on beans, at least if Texas is any indication.
So as a state, yes, acres of soybeans will be up in Texas. It'll be a sizable amount, maybe as much as 200,000 acres this year more.
NCGA's president is more optimistic about corn retaining its market share.
With low prices, good yield really solves everything, and the yield potential for corn on the upside is much better than it is for soybeans. So I think there's a potential to have more corn planted because of that.
However, corn will also lose ground to cotton in southern states like Texas due to higher prices.
I figure they might be up another 100,000, maybe 200,000 acres. The big increases in cotton are Oklahoma looks to be just a huge increase, in Kansas a huge increase.
Wheat acres were at the lowest level in 109 years in 2017 and won't gain much in 2018 with prices well below USDA's break-even levels.
To break even, and that's fully loaded, that's return to management, but they're talking in that $7 range, $7.50 range to make a profit on wheat. We're nowhere near that.
Plus, the drought in the southern plains and poor crop ratings may further pressure winter wheat acreage.
Very likely acres will be abandoned. We may very well see the lowest harvested acres on record.
And if the drought lingers this spring, grain sorghum historically picks up some acres.
Some of the early projections were about a 500,000 acre increase. Certainly it's a little early to know that for sure, but somewhere in that range.
Yet there are still many farmers that will continue to plant the status quo for agronomic reasons.
We're going to stay with our main rotation, roughly 50-50 between soybeans and corn.
However, there's still time before Midwestern farmers start planting for the markets or weather to impact those plans. I'm Michelle Rourke reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Back to Pro Farmer Survey. They expect to see more spring wheat acres this year, totaling 11.8 million acres. That's an increase of about 7%. And Pro Farmer pegs cotton acres at 13.7 million. That's about 8% higher. They also see an increase in sorghum plantings due to the drought in the southern plains. Their survey showing a nearly 9% rise, coming in at a little over 6 million acres. USDA's acreage report and the quarterly grain stocks report come out at noon Eastern on Thursday. Before then, go to agweb.com to check out our preview coverage on a variety of crops, including cotton and sorghum. From rain to snow, spring weather is already making an impact across the Midwest. Let's get details of today's crop comments. Mike Hoffman joins us now. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning to you, Clinton. Snow is coming down hard in LaPorte City, Iowa. Jason Gates says conditions are becoming worse with more wind and snow. His wish will more than likely become a reality as temperatures are expected to rise during the second half of the week. And John from Central Indiana also sending us a taste of calving season on his operation. This is his nightly before bed check he has to do throughout the season. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see it's going to be windy ahead of that system from the eastern Great Lakes into the mid-Mississippi Valley. Also in the southwest, especially Southern California. By later today, you can see multiple patches of windy conditions. Heading into the day tomorrow, the winds lessen across the Central Plains and the Great Lakes. A little bit breezy, mid-Atlantic to Texas and the northern plains to the southwest. The winds will increase, though, as we head into the afternoon, northern Rockies and the northern plains. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
When we come back, we'll talk grain prices from an end user's perspective. That's our market analysis today. And we stop by a 4-H competition where safety is a paramount lesson on the shooting range in the country later on AgDay.
With a uniquely powerful formulation of proven ingredients, Resicor corn herbicide gives you extraordinary power.
Who wants dessert?
At least when it comes to weeds.
Brian Doherty, Stuart Peterson, our guest here at the Agribusiness Test today. Brian, as we look at the markets that we're sitting here watching,
right.
On one side we have the grain buyers and growers, and the other side we have the livestock folks. Let's switch over, put our livestock hat on, and talk about buying opportunities for grain.
Right, yeah. If you look at the price of corn right now, and we're getting pretty conditioned to think that $4 corn is expensive corn.
Sure.
In reality, if we go back since about 2005, we've seen plenty of years where volatility kicks in, the market's a lot higher. Just not recently. We've gotten away with it, so to speak, with big production from an end user perspective, you've got cheap supply readily available. That may not always be the case, and as you kind of look at the last 2 years, we've seen the demand ship leave port, it's sailing, and it's picking up steam. So the world supply of corn is diminishing. This will be the first year in 8 years that the world demand will outstrip world supply. So my point is this, there are things kind of bubbling under the surface that could have real significant impact on the price of corn. The biggest variable will be weather. So if I'm an end user, particularly if you look at all three, cattle, hogs, dairy, down right now, the last thing you need to do is all of a sudden find out the price of corn has gone up 50 cents or $1.50 or $2.50. You get into a weather market, all bets are off.
Right, absolutely. It's really easy to get complacent and think, oh, well, the price is down, it's going to stay here forever.
Right.
We know that's not the case. So if I'm looking at, how far out are we talking about?
Yeah.
Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking a year?
Yeah, we're getting close to pulling the trigger, at least on, if you haven't, you should pull the trigger at least on 6 months worth, if not a year's worth. I don't think there's an appreciable downside for corn. And I know some of your viewers might say, geez, I look out my back window and I see this pile of corn in town. That is the case in the western half of the United States in particular. Sure. But that's a supply displacement. When we look at the global macro picture and the way that the managed money went from net short to net long and just a light switch flip, things can change in a hurry, mindsets change, and all of a sudden if we start seeing some weather events that could suggest lower yield in corn, it's not going to take long for not only the speculative interest, but the commercial interest to jump on board, and then farmer selling begins to slow in earnest. And so now everybody wants it, nobody wants to sell it. So we need to be ready for that as a feed user. Purchase your call options, in particular with this pullback in corn before the acreage report.
All right, appreciate it. That's good advice. Thanks, Brian. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779 or visit stewartpeterson.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here. Mike, we always wish that once we hit spring, you'd just shut the snow off and it would warm up and it would be just beautiful spring weather for, months on end.
This has been a spring where I wish I could change the forecast and it would come true. But of course, yeah, it doesn't work that way. Here's the map this morning. And as you can see, a very wet system across the Great Lakes, central Mississippi Valley, all the way down into Texas. A little bit of snow in the northern fringe there in the Great Lakes and also back into parts of Colorado, central Colorado especially. Now, putting the maps into motion, you can see all of these areas of low pressure moving off toward the northeast, so it continues to be wet later today. Eastern Great Lakes across Indiana, southern Illinois, all the way down into Texas, parts of New Mexico, getting a little bit of rain and mountain snow there. Secondary system moving across the northern portions of the Rockies, northern plains. Not a lot of moisture with that one as we head through the nighttime hours into tonight, but still some rain and snow in New England, and then rain, showers and thunderstorms actually along that front as we head through the day tomorrow. And it's just going to be a slow mover. So there's going to be parts of the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley get a fair amount of rain, even the southern Great Lakes out of the systems coming through over the next couple of days. Let's check that then. Precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours from southeast Iowa to central Indiana all the way back into north central Texas. More than an inch in many places. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see parts of the middle Mississippi Valley into Illinois and Indiana are going to end up with 2 or 3 inches of rain. And that's the same idea for areas from western Tennessee back across Arkansas. So this is a pretty wet several systems here coming toward the east. As far as snow is concerned, it's all in the northern fringe of these systems. Adding in the next 36 hours to go with the previous 24, and you can see northern Minnesota, central Colorado, and the higher elevations toward the northwest from there getting some decent amounts of snow. 70s and 80s, though, showing up for high temperatures this afternoon. Southern Mississippi Valley, just 40s across the northern plains. Tonight, we're looking at frost and freeze across parts of Minnesota, northern Great Lakes once again, back into many parts of the Rockies. Still mild in the southeast, out ahead of that next cold front. Then you can see late in the afternoon tomorrow, 70s and 80s from the mid-Atlantic back to Texas. But a lot of 50s behind it and even some 30s and 40s for highs by the time you get to the Canadian border. Here's the jet stream, and we've been talking about this kind of transition period. You can see the big trough kind of moving through the middle of the country, and it's very cold by early next week across Canada, but a zonal flow across the lower 48, which should warm it up at least a little bit, especially if you live in the southern portions. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We'll head to Las Cruces, New Mexico. First of all, comfortable, lots of sunshine, high of 67. Duluth, Minnesota, mostly cloudy, a bit milder, high 44. And Dover, Delaware, mix of sun and clouds, high temperatures this afternoon around 49 degrees.
Our dairy report, including a labeling win for the industry in the latest spending bill. That's next. Plus, we head in the country to Louisiana, where 4-H'ers take aim at top prizes. But the real victory stems from lessons about safety and skill.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
On our dairy report, the latest cattle on feed from USDA is showing current dryness is pushing numbers into the nation's feedlots. The March 1st report counting 11.7 million head. That's up nearly 9% year over year, the first time that's happened since 2006. Placements were up 7%, while marketings rose 2%. Ongoing dryness in the Southwest and persistent drought conditions since October are forcing more young cattle into feed yards early. Meanwhile, the newly minted omnibus spending bill with several key initiatives for cattle owners. According to NCBA, emissions reporting is waived for livestock producers. The provision exempts roughly 200,000 livestock farms from having to report gas emissions, a rule they say was meant for toxic Superfund sites. And the omnibus bill also granting livestock haulers an exemption from electronic logging devices until September 30th. The delay is meant to give Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration officials more time to educate livestock haulers about ELDs while the industry looks for solutions to the current hours of service rules. Those rules have been an issue for truckers driving livestock cross-country. And the omnibus spending bill also including language regarding milk labeling. The bill directing the FDA to take action against mislabeled imitation dairy foods. The National Milk Producers Federation saying it should restrict the ability of beverages made from plant foods from using the term milk, cheese, or yogurt. Up next, we'll see how 4-H'ers are taking aim at important lessons like safety, skill, and perseverance. In the country's next.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Shooting sports is one of the most popular programs in Louisiana 4-H with a spot at the state competition on the line. More than 900 youth participated in the state's South Regional competition. LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux has that story.
Targets were tossed, shotguns were shot, and BB guns slung steel. All part of the 4-H Shooting Sports South Regional competition. Shooting Sports is one of the newer programs offered through 4-H, and its popularity is helping to draw older students back to the youth organization.
It's drawing a lot more boys, especially high school boys, back to our high school program that maybe didn't think 4-H was for them, because we still have that old mental model that 4-H is only for someone showing livestock or cooking.
But girls do compete too, and they have been quite successful.
Actually, our girls are very competitive. They're probably more detail-oriented than some of our boys. It's good, and it gives them confidence in being able to handle firearms appropriately as well.
The BB gun division is one of the largest because many students' first exposure to shooting is through a BB gun. Most competitors move on to shotguns, rifles, or muzzleloaders.
After BB, you just branch out into all different categories, whatever you would like to shoot in. So basically, BB is the foundation of what you're going to shoot.
Shooting sports is a family tradition for many participants. Parents see it as an opportunity to teach gun safety, but it can also serve as a lesson for their children in perseverance.
Of course, safety, but just the discipline of trying. You're not going to always break the first target. You're not going to hit, both pair, but keep trying.
The program relies heavily on volunteers to help run the competition. And the volunteers and parents feel it is time well spent.
Oh, it was definitely worth my time to see how well they're shooting and then be excited about themselves, and their confidence level has increased greatly. over the last several months is definitely worth our time.
With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
The state competition is next month. The 4-H Sporting Shoot Nationals will be held in Grand Island, Nebraska in June. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.